Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Manic Energy. This is Ryan Swore, your host. Today, I'm looking forward to talking to you quite a bit, so you'll have to put up with me. I want to talk about a concept that really is near and dear to my heart, employee engagement, and really creating systems and a culture where employees want to stay with the company. So I appreciate you joining us on this ride. I'm Ryan Swore, and this is Manic Energy, a podcast that dives into the fast-moving world of energy, business, and the people powering it all. From bold ideas to real-world innovation, we're talking breakthroughs, market moves, and the community shaping what's next. Whether you're building for the future or just here for the fun, welcome to the chaos. So employee engagement to me really is about culture. It's about, do we have people making really strong decisions? It's really all it is. Do they care? Are they showing up to just go through the tasks and go through the motions? Or are they showing up thinking about, this as a career? Whatever your role is, whatever job, whatever company, how a person shows up to me matters. And I think there's some onus on the employee to have a certain perspective and mindset, but it really starts with the company and the leaders of the organization setting the right environment. That's a really difficult thing to do well. And for anybody that's at any phase of that journey, there's certainly a lot of learning. So maybe we'll start with the start of a journey for somebody entering an organization. And I think about it. I've been a part of a small business, a business that's growing, a business that's a bit larger, publicly traded companies, a lot of different backgrounds. And the interesting thing is, despite all that, the recipe for success has always been the same. And at times it's not going well, and you can step back and look and say, all right, where do we need to make changes? And sometimes it's going really well, and it feels great when that's happening. But maybe I'll start with the recruiting process in general. It's sort of the first step in when a person has visibility into the company. If you're lucky, somebody has referred them and already thinks what you're doing is great, and they've told their friends and family about it and have said, hey, this is great. We want to be a part of this. I like being a part of it. You should too. That doesn't always happen. But the reality is, regardless of how you recruit, if it's an actual full-time recruiter, like we have right now, we didn't always have that. Or it's a contracted recruiting agency, or somebody just in the company is, you're a single business owner and you're hiring your first employee.
Referral.
It's that, even if it's not a referral, you're opening your first role. That's a big step. It's a monumental step for a small business owner. And so regardless, or you're a 5,000 person employer, that first experience that a prospective employee is getting, or exposure to the organization, to me is paramount. It's the opportunity to level set. Here's who we are. And I think a lot of employers overlook the opportunity that exists in that phase of somebody's journey in their organization. It's to say, here's what we're all about. Here's why we exist as a company. Here's what we produce. Here's what we deliver. Here's what you're going to be doing is certainly important. But a lot of times people go right into that. You're going to be in marketing, or, it's an administrative assistant position, or you're a senior engineer, or you're an electrician. Like, what a person isn't their identity. I think in an organization, it's what they're doing that matters the most. And I think if you really get into that, that's how you drive that engagement. And engagement, again, is somebody who shows up and cares and wants to be there, and wants to see. They want to succeed. They want to see the business. They want to see the business succeed. And so that interview process, like here's why we exist. Now, you can get that right, but if they don't feel that the first 10 minutes of the first day, let's say you're past that point now, and I'm starting my new job, I'm walking in the door, and I've been told all these things in the recruiting process, I don't know what to expect when I show up. Is it organized? Are they ready for me? We've had so many cases in our business historically where a person came in and I mean, it was a shit show, right? Like, I don't know.
There's no computer.
There's no computer. Yeah. We don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Nobody's ready for me. There's nothing for you to do today. I mean, that was like my first 2 weeks on the job. In our company today. Maybe it was the first month, honestly, where it was like, I sat down and I read. It's like, what am I supposed to do? I'll tell the story. I walked in and they were like, you have the wrong room. Like legitimately, I walked in and they're like, "You're not supposed to be here." I was like, "No, the owner hired me." Like, "Nah, we didn't hire you. You're just a kid." And I was, right? Like I was the youngest person in the company by far. And I was like, "No, I mean, this is the room I interviewed in. Like I'm supposed to be here." And they're like, "Well, okay, let's make a phone call." They called the owner and he was like, "Oh yeah, he was starting today. I forgot to tell you," type of thing. And he was swamped. He was trying to, keep his head above water and survive. There's no time for things like this. There really isn't. And I have an appreciation for that now. But it was like, need you to read, sit down and read. And I look back at that very fondly because I sat down and read a lot of regulations. I learned so much and it still sticks with me today.
Sure.
It was like an investment in my learning.
So question back up to your first day and how you showed up and the sort of reaction you got. That was because there was no HR department that was kind of maybe helping, or
Oh yeah, there's no HR. There was no
okay.
HR. There was
Just trying to set the stage on what things.
There was a business manager
Okay.
that had not been informed. I don't think that I was starting.
Okay.
And so,
curious.
there was no, it was very flat, right? There's like 15 people. Everybody has a thing they're doing for a customer, but there's no definition. Everybody works for the owner of the company. There's no supervisors, there's no managers, there's one leader, and it's like, again, very flat. Everybody reports to that leader.
Okay.
And it's how a small business starts, right?
Yep.
And not only is there not time, there's not usually in a small business, there's not money to go invest in things like that.
Sure.
And sometimes even experience to know how to set that stuff up. And so, I start and so I'm doing this reading and they're like, do you need anything? I sat at like a card table, like a folding chair. And I was like, gosh, I feel like I don't know if I need anything. They're like, do you drink coffee? At the time, not really. No, I don't drink coffee. That changed quick. But I was like, they're like, do you know how to make coffee? After I started drinking, I was like, oh yeah, I know how to make coffee. I had no idea. And I always remember it was like day one and I'm like, how can I differentiate? How can I show that I belong? I was like, you know what? I saw the coffee pot. There's people in the office. There's like 6 or 7 people and they're all coffee drinkers. I don't even think I was drinking it yet, but I was like, I'm going to help out. I see the coffee pot's empty. I'm going to stand up. I need to stretch my legs. And I'm like, I'm going to make coffee. Well, I mean, there's a filter that goes in there. I figured that part out. I opened the top, put the filter in, and the grounds clearly go in the filter. There's no Google at this point, by the way. I had Snake on my phone.
I'm wondering where you're going to go wrong here, honestly.
Well, I didn't notice that there's like a back chamber.
Sure.
And I'd seen somebody do this like 20 times. Maybe I'm like the first week. I'm like, I've seen somebody do it so many times. I just go to the sink. I fill up the coffee pot to about there. Seems about right. And then I poured it in the grounds in the filter.
Yeah.
But I watched as the gal that was there had always done it. She was like, she's always in a hurry, which is awesome to watch. She's like getting stuff done so fast. And I did it like she does it, which is like take the coffee pot and just pour it all at once. And of course, it overflowed everywhere. I mean, there's coffee grounds like legitimately everywhere.
Which are the worst to clean up.
And I'm freaking out, like quietly opening cabinet doors, trying to look for paper towel roll. I can't find what I need. And it's like, finally somebody's like in the back corner, like in the front, they're like, what are you working on back there, Ryan? Can we help you? I'm like, no, I got it. Don't worry about it. Sure enough, they come back. They're like, you sure made a mess. I was like, yeah, it turns out I said I know how to make coffee, but I lied. I actually don't. And I could use some help. They're like, oh, there's a back chamber. I'm like, stupid. I should have known that. I should have figured that out. My point was like, I knew nothing. And I still felt a way to excel. And I feel like I succeed in the role. Because what mattered was that I tried.
Sure.
And I think no matter who you are, no matter what business you're starting in, that's a really important starting point.
Try to find a way to contribute to whatever scenario you're in or whatever team you're on.
For sure. And anybody can do that.
Yep.
And I think, and be willing to fail and be willing to try and recover from that failure and learn from it. And I think, what would have been amazing is if there was a well-structured program. As soon as I walked in, you hear the things you need to do. Here's what you can expect in the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 1 year, 5 years. Here's what your opportunities in front of you look like. And the better a business does that, I think the more likely you are to have people buy into or subscribe to what it is you're trying to accomplish as an organization. But that takes years to build, as I've found out. And and it's not always easy to do well or at scale. And so, for me, I still felt that genuine or the authenticity from the interview process with the people that I was working with. And so it felt like a place I wanted to be for that reason.
Sure.
And so again, the biggest disruptor is we had this notion of what this organization is going to be. And then day one, it's something completely different. I thought it was going to be friendly. I'm getting yelled at left and right. I thought it was going to be high pressure. I'm bored out of my mind. I thought I was going to be doing this. Turns out I'm doing something completely different. Those are all, seemingly minor, but sometimes very significant disruptions
Mhm.
that affect an employee's engagement or potential engagement, them reaching their potential. So, trying to do that well, I think from communicating a good message on the front end before somebody starts, day negative 20
Mhm.
to the first 10 minutes of their role, when they first start, they walk in the door, it's the same genuine feel. It's really important to get that right. And I think it sets you up for the best possible success into, all right, here's what the first few days look like. And as a leader, you really have such a strong or important role in the process,
Mhm.
right? Like when you walk in and that person that you're going to be working with actually takes the time to sit down. Like if they're too busy to talk to you, that feels a certain way. And maybe you don't know what to expect. But if you're starting a role and the person really takes time and genuine interest in who you are and what you do, you should really value that. I think like this person took the time out of their day to come talk to me, see how I'm doing. One trick I don't know, I didn't read it. I came up with it one day, and I found that it's really really difficult to do, and I constantly fail at this. But I aspire to do better at it. And as we've grown, it's become more difficult. We have a
Mhm.
lot of employees at our company that I don't know. I've never
Sure.
met. I don't know personal things about them. I don't know professional things about them. I may not be able to put a face to the name. But when we've had people on board, at least here in our home city of Duluth, I had asked our recruiting team, hey, if we're starting somebody's starting, I'd love to see their resumes the Friday before they start, assuming it's a Monday morning. And sometimes I get those sent to me, sometimes I don't. And then sometimes when I get them, I review them, sometimes I don't. But I really like to let's say we have 3 people starting. I want to see their resumes and I try to commit some things to memory about each of those individuals. I have no clue what they look like. Never met these folks before, but inherently or ultimately what happens is they get walked around and introduced to people in the office.
Yep.
And most of the people that are like the employees that are being introduced to the new person are like, "Hi, I'm Jessica or I'm John.
Mhm.
Nice to meet you." Very rare do you see somebody fully engaging and standing up from their workstation. I mean, we're in a professional setting, but you can do the same thing whether in a manufacturing
Mhm.
business. Like, hey, it's okay to stop what I'm doing and take the time to get to know who you are and welcome you into this business because you're now part of our family. It's really important, and an employee can have such a strong role or such a big impact early on that it really shouldn't be overlooked. And it's to their benefit if the people around them, care, uh, hands down, without question. And so I've tried to like read these resumes. I'm going to commit something to memory. So, and the 3 people get walked around and meet me, I need to make sure that I'm too busy to meet with you. But what I
Mhm.
am is I'm curious. Like,
Mhm.
so I saw you went to school for this. Like, what, that's not at all like this. What brings you here?
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, how did you know I went to school for that? I don't know which of these people are which, but as soon as they're introduced, then it's okay. I've got like 2 or 3 anchor points that I've committed to memory in their resume. I noticed that, you have a hobby. You've climbed a mountain or
Yep.
you like to go hiking or, hey, you love animals.
Mhm.
Like, how do you know that about me? It just shows that you've taken the time
Mhm.
to invest some energy into who they are as an individual, where they come from. And you can easily then pivot that conversation into, um, so what are you looking for? What are you hoping to get? Welcome type of thing.
Mhm.
Maybe it's that person's first week or 2. I like to kind of stop by and be like, week 1, huh? Like, how did it go? You're
Right.
still here. You came
Yep.
back. So
Yep.
it can't be all bad. And normally people are just like, why is he talking to me? It's kind of the feel I get. So I don't push too hard. But I think what's more important is I can do that as the leader of the business, but anybody can do that. Anybody can take the time to care about somebody.
Mhm.
Spend a minute. It doesn't matter what role you're in. Get to know them, commit their name to memory, think about their hobbies, their interests, and get to know. You don't need to be their best friend. You don't need to be friends outside of work, but you're working together, regardless of what business you're in. And knowing something about them, I think, is really meaningful, and it starts to connect them to the business and to the people of the business early on.
Sure. So when, you kind of shared a little bit about when you started here. There are 15 people, but everyone reported up to the leader, the owner.
Hmm.
Um, and there wasn't any sort of onboarding process. So when did that switch from when it was, I imagine at some point, you had taken personal responsibility as people were coming into the organization, but when did it switch from being personal responsibility to something that was driven
Mhm.
by the organization?
Yeah, great question. We went through it the same journey that any small business that grows to a certain point goes
Mhm.
through. The chances of success in getting to that are, I'm told, pretty low, and it's a really difficult road of failure and
Sure.
learning and trying to get better. I think we probably had like 70 to 80 employees before we had our first supervisor.
And then but
So,
was
so 70 people reporting to one
Oh,
person.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, it was like 70. I think I remember seeing the org structure. It was like printed on a wall. And it
A
was like,
mile
yeah,
long,
exactly.
yeah.
It was like ticker tape, like
Yeah,
that big and that wide.
yeah,
But it was like, and I think it was like a cry for help. It was like, I need help. And the journey we went through is, like I said, what many do, which is you take the people who know the most about what it is they're doing. They have the most skills in the subjects that you deliver, and you promote them into leaders.
sure.
You don't really have the luxury, I don't think, or the know-how oftentimes to say, hey, we're going to look for those regardless of experience or skills that individuals might want to follow
Mhm.
or have the strongest leadership tendencies, or have the greatest degree of empathy, or are the most organized,
Sure.
whatever the role or the business you're in,
Yep.
is going to value most. Um, who has those leadership qualities is rarely a question. It certainly wasn't a question we ever asked.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of businesses go through that evolution if they're growing, and every business starts somewhere and grows from it. Now, maybe if you have a really strong, leader that founds a company that has those experiences, they know how to do that.
Mhm.
Um, but I think most commonly that's not the case, right?
Right, the
Usually
easy
people who
answer
start businesses
is
have a passion for what it is
yeah.
they're trying to do, and not necessarily a passion for, organizational management and,
Mhm.
and how to set a business up for success with its infrastructure. A lot of times that comes later. And so, yeah, so we started adding leaders that knew nothing about leadership. I was one of them. It took a while for me to get there. I think eventually it was really interesting. Like I was by myself for a couple of years in one of our skill areas, and really just trying to advance my technical knowledge the best I could. And then when we hired our first couple of people because we had enough business to justify that, it was just a really exciting time for them. Those individuals are still at the company today. And then now there were three, and it was like, all right, how are we building this together? How are we going to do this? Look at this opportunity in front of us. We could be
Mhm.
this, and then we could be that. And I remember like my wildest imagination. It was like, I remember one time the owner asked me, how will you define your career as successful? As successful. And I'll always remember what he said to me when I gave the response. I said, right now there's I think at the time we had like 7 people in this field, and the organization might have been like 60, 70 people. And I was like, I think if I retired from LSC and we had 30 people doing this same thing, I would call that successful. And I meant it
Mhm.
wholeheartedly. Like, I cannot imagine how amazing that would be. And he said 2 things to me of which I'll always remember. First thing he said to me is, you should never define success or a measure of success by the amount of people that you work with or that work for you. I was like, hey, it didn't really mean enough to me at that time. It certainly
Mhm.
does now. It's like, that's right. That's irrelevant, right? Like this can be 10,000 people. And if I don't get personal satisfaction or create but what I mean by that is like meaning.
Yeah, more purpose
Yeah,
behind it, yep.
purpose. Yeah, well said. Then what is it all for? It's just a
Mhm.
job, right?
Mhm.
Like, and the amount of people affect that very little. Certainly, the larger the team, the more influence we can have, the more effect we can have on whatever we're providing for a
Mhm.
service or a product. And so the bigger the scale, the bigger the impact, and the ability to hopefully do good. But that's not a metric of success. And he asked me, when will you define your career as successful? And I was like, that's a pretty interesting feedback. And I think it's something somebody had given to him at one point. The second thing he said to me is, I think you can do 40. And I was like, wow, I can't believe
Yeah,
you have that
right.
level of confidence. Like, first of all, that seems contradictory. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you have that level of confidence. Like, wow, I can't believe that you believe that we could get to that point.
Mhm.
And, like 5 years later, we surpassed 40, and today we got about 90 people doing this. And so, at least in that area of our business, and I don't feel successful. I don't feel like it's been successful yet because we still have so much work to do We have people that didn't get that genuine onboarding experience. We have people that did. We have systems that need to be updated. We have, individuals that feel like they're not getting what they want out of their career. We've got customers that are thrilled with what we're doing. We have customers that are very dissatisfied, and all that hits home and is very personal. So we have work to do, and I think we always will. And so when did that change? I mean, when we hired a couple people, by the way, I think I got promoted to a technical lead. It wasn't really well defined. I didn't know what it meant. I don't think anybody did, but it just sort of meant like I was responsible in some fashion for the work of others. But I didn't do like performance reviews or hiring, or knew nothing about pay for anybody. A lot of the, standard leader responsibilities. And then over time, like those leadership skills got added where it was like, okay, now you're a supervisor. And then I became a manager, which just basically meant a supervisor of supervisors.
Yep.
And I didn't know what that meant, and there's a really good Simon Sinek kind of bit on this that I took a lot from, where it's like, as a leader, it's your job to take care of others. It's your job to take care of others, not just do the job. You might have to do the job alongside others, but you're supposed to take care of them. And then as a leader of leaders, now your job is to motivate, educate, and train others to take care of others, which is a harder thing to do yet, right? You're trying to then set systems and foundation or an environment where the leaders that work for you emulate whatever behavior your business prioritizes or behaviors your business prioritizes. And that's a hard thing to do well and to transition, because for me, I'll always be, I want to grab the tool. I want to do the work, especially that part of our business, because that's where I started. But my effect can have, cumulative impact or, exponential impact if I focus instead on systems and training others. Like one person can only do so much. We need an army of talent and engaged people that care about our business to really make things thrive.
Have you, in your experience and all of the different people and leaders that you've worked with, and even in the role you're in right now, have you found any challenges or faced any challenges? For some reason, I have it in my brain that it comes natural to some people it doesn't. Leadership skills. Have you? What have you seen?
Yeah.
And you either got it or you don't.
No, there's maybe some of that.
Sure.
Right. For sure, there's some of that. There is like the kind of got it factor, but I think people are mistaken sometimes. Leadership is a muscle. And I've only learned this more and more recently.
Okay.
It feels like, anyhow, where the more research you do, the more you learn, not just from the school of hard knocks, but actually studying. It does pay dividends. It can look like, Googling something that you want your leadership team to think, and this might sound bad, but you want them to be thinking about the people that work for them when they're not punched in or they're not on the clock. Like that's that empathy. That's that general concern and care. And when leaders behave that way, they're people that work for them feel it. They know it. They also know even better when they don't. They don't answer their phone. They don't care about me. They're not thinking ahead. And so, you certainly want your leaders to be organized and have some of those skills that are kind of baseline. But no leader that's strong or good by whatever measure got there by just having a natural raw talent. Yeah, I think people are probably more apt and will have people follow them more readily to start. But the more you work that muscle, the stronger you get. The more you learn about it. We had Rob Unzen as a guest. I mean, I've learned so much from him over the years where it's like, I didn't know what I didn't know. I've been doing this for 12 years. And I had no idea that was even a thing. And then I listened to, I was listening to an audiobook, traveling the country for work. And this person talked about, hey, listen, if you have a message, it's on you to share that. Nobody will share it for you. And I'm very like, you won't find me active on social media despite this. As you know, right? I don't want to go to conferences. I want to like sit in the corner and huddle and hide.
No networking here.
I don't want no networking, please no. And it's not because I don't like talking to people. It's just I just don't. I'm sure everybody's uncomfortable with it. It's no different than public speaking, but it's not something I want to do. And what they're saying is, and what this individual said is like, you got to get out there and you got to tell your story. You should, and nobody will do it for you. And the better you do it, the more you do it, you'll get back what you put into it. And I kind of subscribe to that. I love the
Mhm.
philosophy of, you get in, you get back on what you put into things, whether that's your job or your personal life or your marriage, whatever that is.
Mhm.
Like, I think, I subscribe to that. I subscribe to that philosophy. So it really resonated with me. And it was like, all right, I look at the state of the energy industry. I look at the state of our business. I look at the state of, with AI coming and some potential crises, which we're going to get into on this show over time,
Mhm.
um, and how that can affect every American potentially. Uh, and I think that message needs to get out there more. What am I doing to promote that? And the answer was very little other than running a business. And so it was like, all right, how do you do that? And I'm listening to more and more of this audiobook and talks about the power of a podcast. It's like, just start, just do it. So it's like, gosh, I don't want to do that. So I come back and I talk to somebody like you and I talk to people within the business and say, hey, listen, I think we should think about starting a podcast.
Mhm.
And so I didn't think 10 years ago I would ever be doing this or I should start a podcast. I really don't even want to be doing this right now. But the reality is, it feels like, I can't just sit back and not go try and make that pot of coffee and be willing to fail, or we'll never get the results we want. So here we are. And I hope to tell the story, and I hope that somebody hears it and finds meaning in it and value from it. And if they don't, that's okay too, because I'll learn something in the process.
Mhm. Well, and honestly, it kind of comes full circle in your role at the organization, and even back to when you started. Why are we here? It's something that I feel like we continually like come back to, and
Hmm.
that's the more that we talk about it here, talk about it in other situations, it's ingrained in our culture, and then like the passion, the care, and everything will come through for those employees that are being onboarded. I think as long as, like you said, we practice it, it's a muscle. It's
Yeah.
yep.
So we've changed over time too, right? Because like
Mhm.
I said, we used to just promote the person with the most skills
Mhm.
in that specific area, whatever that area is. And then over time, it's all right. Let's look at who seems to be a natural leader, who wants to do it. Everybody, and I think the other trick is too, and we're just starting this journey. I mean, we're
Mhm.
probably years into it, but it feels to me like we're just getting started because it just change, organizational change is like turning a ship around, a large ship. You just can't spin on a dime. As much as you feel like you'll be able to, it just never happens, and especially when you have any kind of scale.
Mhm.
So for me, it's like, all right, we can't just be better about selecting the right leaders. We have to be better about showing career growth opportunities outside of leadership for
Yeah.
those that we desperately need engaged in the business and have a long tenured career and growth.
Mhm.
It's like, wow, you sit back. How do we do that? What are the roles we need to create? What are the opportunities you can commit to and then deliver on,
Mhm.
and in a way that then creates uh, buy-in and trust.
Mhm.
Because if you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you erode to trust. If you do something without saying you're going to do it, you're missing an opportunity to demonstrate that you're someone who follows through on your commitments.
Mhm.
And so, when you say, hey, I want to go do these things, here's what's going to look like, you got to be willing to walk that walk. And so we've been focusing a lot, I think, at that you call it the critical middle, or, I think a publicly traded company we were in called it your frontline supervisors. Um, let's call it your supervisor, your first level or layer of leadership that usually kind of do the work alongside the individuals that are working for them. I mean, that's the most important. It's the most important role in the organization, probably. In For me, there's another concept about there's a lot of books on this. There's a lot of content about it's hard to change culture, right? Culture is everything, is my opinion. And how do you establish culture or know when you have a good culture? Yeah, I always felt like, and we'll get back to this onboarding thing, right?
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
kind of rambling a bit, but um, yeah, I've always thought of a concept called, or at least what I've called, peer accountability. And what I mean by that is we've got a new employee that's starting, let's say today. And as part of that onboarding process, I'm the manager of the group. And as the manager, they first talk to their supervisor and then they get brought in the manager's office to meet them. And I sit down with them and I say, hey, listen, when you're here, here's how you behave. We prioritize safety. We want to make sure we're prepared for every job. We care about you as an individual. You need to speak up. If you see something that doesn't look right, we really want you. And I can say this with all the genuine, all the authenticity I can and say, listen, this is really how I want you to behave, regardless of what that is. Or, here speed is everything. Whatever the message is,
Mm-hmm.
I can tell them whatever I want. And then they go, on the shop floor or in the field or, out into the office. And there's 3 or 4 people that they're working alongside that have been there for however long. Doesn't matter. They're the new person. They've been there. And in your mind, I think most people are like, all right, I hear it. I want to do that. If they see behaviors that are very different in the
Mm-hmm.
workplace from their peers, like, Ryan, he says that, but he doesn't mean that. Like, they don't care about us. Well, I don't know. He seemed honest about it. How long, even if they say, like, chances are they're going to believe the people right away and say, yeah, it's bullshit. Like, this is the reality.
Mm-hmm.
What Ryan's saying is just what every manager says.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they envision or want to be the case, but it's not really true. I mean, how many I've been in jobs where that was the case, right? You think it's going to be one thing, you get in there, it's completely different from the people that are there. And so, what do I do over time? I emulate their behavior. They take shortcuts, they cut corners. Nobody cares about safety. Nobody speaks their mind for fear of reprisal. Even if day one I believed Ryan and I want to talk to myself in the third person, I
Mm-hmm.
believe the manager and I want to do what they say. The people that I'm working with are going to teach me far better.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, maybe it's that I'm genuinely or naturally a positive person, an optimist, and I walk in and there's 5 pessimists. Yeah, I've been in this position. How long before I'm a pessimist in the way I think and the way I act? Usually it depends on the person, but it takes days, weeks, months, a year. Next thing you know, I'm angry. I don't like work. None of us like work. That's what negative culture looks like. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very difficult to change. So, it doesn't matter what I say as a leader. I still have to do those things and show that I care. But what I say is not going to teach them anything about how to behave. Their peers will do that for me. Let's take the other side of the coin. Person starts day one. I never talk to them at all. I don't have to. Never even meet with them. They go into the shop floor or the field or, into the office and they're predisposed to negativity.
Mm-hmm.
They're a very negative person. They don't want to be there. They don't care. It's just a job to them. They walk into a group of 4 or 5 people that really care, that get it, that are the ones that create and build that strong culture. They don't work for each other. They're coworkers. That person's going to stick out like a sore thumb that walks into that.
Mm-hmm.
And they have one of 2 options in my experience. They can either change and become a positive person and give into peer pressure to support that positive culture, or they can get rejected and they'll quit the job.
Mm-hmm.
They'll leave on their own. And so at the end of the day, what I say doesn't matter. I think for me, it's a really strong concept of peer accountability. For us in our business, we have so much remote work, and by remote, I mean people traveling, going to job sites together, outside of an office environment or a controlled environment in a plant, that the reality is it's sort of highlighted, it's emphasized even more, that peer accountability or that concept. Do we show up for jobs on time? Do we show up prepared? Do we care while we're here? Do we cut out early? Do we say we took a 20-minute break, but actually take an hour-long break? Do we falsify how many miles we drove because we gain personally from it? That's all culture.
Mm-hmm.
And there will always be people who try and cheat it. And the question is, do you have a culture where the individuals that are there alongside it reject it and stand up and say, we're not going to take this, or are they the ones promoting it? And so what can we do as leaders, right? What can we do to try and get that culture strong? First thing you can do is care about people, get alongside them, work with them, listen to their concerns, be honest about what you can't address as much as you are honest about what you can address. When you say you can address something, follow up quickly, show that you care, but demonstrate it by listening to what they say, trying to make the change. Sometimes the change is so big and hard to do. And, like, hey, we can't stand, a good example in our business, scheduling is difficult. That's a very difficult thing to fix. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But saying, all right, we're going to fix scheduling and then just not doing it is a trap I've fallen into before. And many of us have. And a lot of times that erodes trust. And so if you do that too often and you kind of push the envelope on it, then people start to lose faith in what they're doing. And in that concept of engagement, which basically, again, is just, are they acting in the best interest of themselves, their peers, their coworkers, and the organization on their own accord? Or do you have to sort of just, you have to be there policing everything? I mean, in an ideal world, you don't have to police anything because everybody's engaged and asks questions, raises their hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can get into things like, how do we create an innovative environment where people are bringing ideas forward? These are all very difficult things to set up and do well. And we have a long road ahead of us. And I think it just, the game of business, if you're lucky, goes on forever, and you just make constant improvement. So I don't know if I answered your question about how I've changed, but I've certainly kind of learned throughout all of that is like, all right, my job is to set up these systems and keep tweaking them, not change that's, nonsensical, but well planned, well communicated. Here's what we're going to try, and incorporate into our business so that you want to be here even more.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like one strategy that you've found most effective in your journey of, the ebbs and flows of employee engagement?
Gosh, it's so easy. Like I say, I'm an optimist, but I focus on the things I'm failing at. Like to me, I'm always looking at the things I should be doing better at. Like I'm like any leader. I'm the pot calling the kettle black. Like there's things like, it's like, hey, you need to get your employee reviews done. You're a supervisor or manager. You don't have these done.
Yep.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting there. I've got 5 to do yet, and
Yep.
those were due, 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what I found is in my role now, people give me a pass because I'm busy. Well, it's okay. He's really busy. And that's not fair. That's not okay. I need that accountability. I need that help. We all need help. We all need partners in this journey, no matter what role you're in. I like to think that I have a lot of improvement needed. In terms of a best strategy, yeah, the best advice I can give is to actively listen. And even that's hard to do. Like, shut off the phone. Don't put it upside down on the table. Put it away. Throw it away. Lock in. Make eye contact. Body language, is everything. Now I'm thinking about the Little Mermaid. Sorry. So don't forget the importance of body language. Sorry. It's I think it's being in the moment, being present, listening. Second thing I would say beyond that is when you listen, follow up. That's the biggest thing. And it's most meaningful when it matters the least. Meaning, I'm trying to get better at gift giving. I was telling Carrie Hill in our businesses, I'm like, one thing I've tried to learn, and I think my wife kind of actually coached me on this, was like, you got to be better about listening to when somebody says, gosh, you know what I could really use? Or you're at a friend's house and, their pizza cutter is terrible. And it's like, or they can't find it and they open every single drawer and you're like, I'm going to get them a drawer organizer, or I'm going to buy them a really nice $30 pizza cutter when I can afford it. And then you have it shipped to their house, or you drop it off and say, next time you're there, and they're like, wow, that's really thoughtful of you. I think business is the same way. You listen to what somebody's needs are, even when they're not asking for it, and you deliver. And if you do that, you start to create not only allies, but advocates and people that will always go the extra mile for you. And so I've tried really hard to improve my skill set with that subject. But it takes constant attention. And I feel like I see myself failing at it more often than I see myself succeed. But when I do succeed, I feel like I've taken that approach with people that have left the business and, I think still have respect for me and still trust me. And even if they're not with us anymore, maybe they've become customers or maybe they've exited the industry entirely. But when I run across them, I think there's a genuine mutual respect. And listening is kind of the key to all that. And then once you listen, follow up, deliver. Even if you didn't commit to it.
Do you think that an individual plays a role in their own engagement?
Absolutely. Probably one of the biggest roles. You can come into a terrible environment and say, I'm not going to put up with that. I'm going to try and make this better until they make me stop. Anybody can have that perspective, but usually that comes with experience.
That's the easy route and a natural route as the new person in a group setting.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's
tough to come in and change a culture that's negative. Even if it's positive. Everybody has control over their own engagement, I think. It is up to the company to set an environment where it promotes it. And some companies don't care at all, right? Like just, we're going to make money no matter what. Here's what we need you to do. We have a high turnover. That's okay. We accept that. And that's okay. Businesses can do that. it's their choice.
Mhm.
And I think an employee or an individual needs to decide if they want to be a part of that. Now, some people don't have a choice; they need a job, and I have the luxury of having, have been lucky to have a position and an opportunity where I've had gainful employment within LSC for a long time here now. But I do remember what it was like to need a job and be looking for a job. And sometimes people don't have choice, but hopefully once they get their feet under them, then they can start to get some control over the situation and start to say, all right, what am I really looking to get out of this?
Mhm.
And how do I build my resume? How do I differentiate? Anybody can take that. And maybe it's, I need to go to the library and start doing some reading in a certain subject. I love cooking. Maybe
Mhm.
there's a career in cooking. Anybody can go and start getting practice with these things. And so, I think some people have more luck than others and more opportunities presented in front of them. But anybody, no matter what their role is, I feel like I need to do it. When I became the president of the organization, I had no idea how to be the president of a company. Zero clue. I feel like I'd been building the skills I needed for a long time,
Mhm.
but I'm still unarmed. I still need so much more. And if I waste a month without trying to educate myself or something, or listening to people, or make change that's proactive or productive, then people will suffer for that. And so there's that, but I care about that and I want to do better. It's not really what people think. It's, are we making positive change over time? You can't measure it week to week, but you can
Mhm.
certainly measure it over a longer increment of time. And am
Mhm.
I investing in myself? If I'm doing that, no matter what my role is, if I'm a technical leader or a supervisor or president of the company, then I think everybody kind of wins from that, and you start to establish that positive culture.
Mhm. Mhm.
So as senior leaders, we really want to set up. That's when you start talking about strategic things, not tactical. We need to do A, B, C, and D.
Right.
It's, here's how we set the framework.
Mhm.
You sit in a room for way too, let's call it embarrassingly long, working on values. All right, what are our company values? We never defined that. And then by the time you're done with it, you're immensely proud. You twirl the mustache, we nailed it.
Mhm.
These are the values. And then, you roll them out, and a year later, you realize not a single person in the company knows what the values are. It's like, oh, geez, this is really hard.
Tough
It's
rollout.
like, are they even right? Do we change these? Oh, we
Mhm.
can't. How do you address that type of failure? I've been there, and it's really no, it's not demoralizing. It's motivating. It's like, okay, we need to get better. I need to get better.
Mhm.
Got to get better about this, and then realizing that they're smarter. There's so many people that are smarter than I am in our company, and not in our company. Like listening to what they have to say, learning from them, relying on them. Um, it's probably another piece of advice I would give is, know who to rely on, and then ask for help, because
Mhm.
you can't do it all on your own,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
and that's true if you're entry level supervisor, you just got this job. Talk to another supervisor that's been doing it for a while. Try and connect with them. See what
Mhm.
they learned. Maybe they went through the same thing you did. Certainly, people are afraid to talk to their boss about the things they're uncomfortable with, or that they don't know, because it's gonna point out their weaknesses.
Mhm.
But it's really important to go have those conversations. Listen, I know you said that I was supposed to, track production, or track utilization, or track efficiency. I have no idea what you meant when you said that, by the way. Can you maybe show me?
Mhm.
Especially as a leader, you need to ask those questions, and as a leader of leaders, you need to be open to that and say, all right, appreciate you asking that. It's a good thing you did.
Yep.
Let's talk about it, and then be patient.
Yep. Creating that space to have that conversation or where they feel comfortable. But
Exactly.
mhm.
And so now we're kind of getting through the career, and I think all these things cumulatively can create engagement, and
Mhm.
and, and it all boils down to, do you care? Do people show up caring, and do they want to be there? Um, and the more individuals that are doing that, I think, regardless of what business you're in, um, the more successful that business will be. And perhaps the more you have to pay those employees to keep them there, that's part of it.
Mhm.
But the more successful you're going to be, or at least the more rewarding it'll feel. I've also taken a lot from individuals that are either close to or have just retired. Thankfully, I've been really lucky in that regard, where there's some individuals that early in my career were exiting, and I've learned as much, if not more, from those folks about their experiences in business, and their willingness to answer the phone. So if you happen to be a listener and you're one of those people, and you've fully retired, and you've got a little bit of spare time, maybe your employer has no interest, but you could reach back out and say, hey, if you ever want me to come in and sit down with some people and tell them about, my experiences, young people always find that intriguing. What did
Mhm.
you go through? How has
Mhm.
business changed? How has this business changed or industry? You can always impart that knowledge onto others and set up the next generation for success. That creates engagement. Like, is there somebody here that cares about me and I got connected with that's taking the time and energy, investing in me and willing to tolerate my shortcomings and failures. I'm speaking from experience on that, by the way, where, you know, the individuals that were at or semi-retired when I started in this industry, let's just say they had a grand amount of patience. I had a lot of energy and not a lot of movement.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so, they taught me a lot and they didn't have to do that, but, it really meant a lot. It helped my engagement. So, that's a very different thing than the recruiting process or,
Mhm.
you're the supervisor of the employee on day one. And are you taking time for them? Or, are we setting up the right systems? Engagement's created by the cumulative effects of each of these items.
Mhm.
It's no one single thing, and you can track it, certainly. We knew now employee engagement surveys, not my idea, something I was taught like 5, 6 years ago. No idea how we were gonna administer or implement it, but I really liked it, and ideally, at least so far for me, and I still have a lot to learn, that includes some data metrics, but also some, um, you know, uh, um uh,
Comments?
comments. I'm looking for the smart way to say it, but there's like
Came
that
in here.
empirical. Here's the data, your
Sure.
percentages compared to the other percentages, industry and internally with other groups benchmarked. But really, for me, the comments are most meaningful. In year one, when we did the engagement survey, like I opened up the comments and it was like several tabs on a massive spreadsheet, and I started scrolling through the first tab. I got to like comment 8. I'm like, I'm gonna need a drink. Like I'm gonna go open a bottle of wine.
And a box of Kleenex.
And yeah, no, that's how it felt, right? And it was like, this is painful just to read what people think. And like I said, I'm an optimist. My first takeaway was, all right, people believed us when we said that this was confidential. And so that's great.
Yeah.
This is wonderful. We have a heck of a lot to work with here.
Uh-huh.
Where do you start?
Mhm.
And then you go back and you kind of expose yourself and you say, here's what everybody said. It felt pretty terrible to read. Here's what seemed like the biggest actions
Mhm.
that we need to take as an organization to improve in your eyes. And when we do that, we think we'll see better engagement, we'll see better financial results as an organization, because for us at least, that's, the engagement drives it. And I think for any business it probably does. Um, and so you work on that and then you come up with these plans to change, and then a year goes by and you've made no progress. And it's like, all right, we've done some things, but clearly it didn't have the effect because people still feel this way.
Mhm.
A lot of times, even if you've made positive change and you've fixed the problem entirely, there's still a feeling that this is an issue. And it takes time for that feeling to go away, for those systems you've put in place to correct.
Mhm.
Or sometimes the systems you put in place fail at the objective you try to achieve. And you have to be willing to say, all right, got it. Let's get better.
Mhm.
But you have to give things time too. You can't just haphazardly say, oh, we're going to change this and this and this and this and this, because then and other,
It's more
despite how much I
disruptive.
want
Yeah.
to,
Yep.
I'm a little bit, let's change this. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. It's like, whoa, time out. Ryan, we don't want to change our entire compensation philosophy, plan, and approach
Mhm.
next month. We're going to need a little bit more time. Like, I know, but what we're doing isn't working. And so I get it. You can temper my enthusiasm, but I want to know, team, how can we make this better?
Mhm.
Um, and then let's commit to that and let's get something done here. And then we'll measure the effect over time. So engagement surveys certainly one way to measure engagement, right? Is a
Mhm.
survey that is administered ideally by a third party that's credible and confidential,
What
and
other
manages
ways
the
do you
process.
do you measure?
And just talking to people. I mean,
Yeah.
you walk into a business and if the people that are there don't want to be there,
Mhm.
or if they do want to be there, or if they work together or they don't work together. Are they stepping on each other's shoulders? Are they lifting each other up? Like I don't care if you walk into a restaurant or a bar or a retail shop of any kind. or a bowling alley, you're
Mhm.
going to get that feeling from the customer
Mhm.
service that exists or how people are interacting.
Mhm.
And I think humans tend to gravitate to buying from places that seem like they won't want you there.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what business you're in. Or, maybe it's manufacturing from a facility. Usually that manifests in the form of quality and delivery schedules. Engaged team members tend to meet those objectives more often, in my
Mhm.
experience.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how you measure it. So, I think the point of today is you can always take control of the situation, whether you're an individual or an employer.
Mhm.
And the more that we do that together, the better results we can all expect. That's a wrap on this episode of Manic Energy, where the only constant is change. If you're fired up, do us a solid. Follow the show, leave a quick review, or send it to a friend. Got questions, ideas, or a topic you want us to dig into? Drop us a line at the link in the show description. Thanks for riding the current with us. Until next time, stay charged.